But as a matter of fact, some of them made their constitution and thereafter immediately signed the accession also. And I'll also show to your lordships from this chronology that the draft accession agreement was common to all. Everybody has signed the same draft. And this is whole length and breadth of the country. They were making either having their constitution or making their constitution. Well, Lord, why? I just, Lord, we were just, Lord, examining why these three subjects are kept, Lord, even by them to themselves, Lord, namely defense, communication, and, Lord, foreign affairs. The reason was, Lord, there is a small princely state. It can't have its own army. Communication means the British had laid postal services and Britishers have also laid railway lines. So that communication was crucial, and every state can't have their own communication system for intra-princely state communication. And foreign affairs, obviously, they would like the greater power to control. That was basically the idea. Thereafter, as I go on, the lordships would be satisfied that ultimately everything started getting subsumed, and there are discussions. Once Article 1 comes into force with first schedule, all states which became part of the first schedule, came to be governed by the Constitution of India, and the only sovereign which remained was we, the people of India. So, my lord, first, why I am pointing out the basic argument that Jammu and Kashmir was the only princely state having its constitution and therefore was getting a separate treatment is factually not well founded. Jawaharlal Nehru clearly stated that no princely state could prevail militarily against the army of independent India. This is, my lord, the first step for unification of the Federation of India, which eventually became Union of India. Lord, Jammu and Kashmir had 4 representatives, including late Sheikh Abdullah. But the relevant parties, when more and more princely states started acceding and accepting the Constitution of India, their representatives also kept on being added, and they started participating in framing of our Constitution. And, my lord, I will come to that, my lord, at an appropriate...
One clarification.
Yes,
the 4 representatives of Jammu and Kashmir were there from the beginning or only in October?
No, not from the beginning. They came, my lord, subsequently.
49, I think they came.
Yeah, yes. 49, my lord.
49?
It comes, that date will come.
June 1949.
Yeah, yes, that date will also come. And I may, my lord, at the outset, my lord, just flag it. It would come in the chronological order. All these states who eventually became part of the Union of India had their differently worded instruments of accession. Some of them have said that taxation would be within our domain only. But thereafter, my lord, as the legislative and the constitutional history progresses, this is how countries are formed. When, my lord, we have more than one federal units, and it's unlike American federalism where they entered into a contract to form the union. We didn't adopt, my lord, that model in a very wise, my lord, foresight of our forefathers. That they did not choose that option. They voluntarily started joining and participating in the process of constitution making. Nehru, in his capacity as the vice president of the interim government, which included both present-day India and Pakistan, clearly said that independent India would not accept the divine right of kings. So this is January 1947. The stand of India and the party which led the freedom struggle was, we will not accept divine right of kings. We are going for a democratic setup. And that stand remained consistent, as I'll point out. Lord, the interpretation given by the petitioner was that the autonomy was the foundational stone of the constitutional making. Lord, this autonomy will have to be understood from the subsequent paragraphs. States are still autonomous in case of, Lord, list 2, schedule 7, etc. Lord, there are several provisions giving them an internal autonomy while being a part of the larger Union of India. Then 5, declared that there shall be guaranteed and secured to all the people of India justice, social, economic, and political equality of status. Kindly mark this: equality of status was the avowed goal while framing the Constitution. One union or one segment of the Union of India cannot be deprived of the rights which are enjoyed by rest of the countrymen. My Lord, all these facts, my Lord, would be necessary as a process of connecting the dots for me to, my Lord, persuade your Lordships to reach a particular conclusion. Even otherwise, whichever way, my Lord, your Lordships would like to ultimately decide, these facts would be relevant, my Lord. Therefore, my Lord, I am placing only those facts which are relevant, my Lord, to the issue. My Lord, I'm sorry, my learned senior, Mr. Dwivedi points out that this resolution, which I say, my Lord, objective, Lord, was thereafter passed, framed and placed before the Constituent Assembly in 46, which was approved by the Constituent Assembly. And the preamble, my Lord, draws inspiration from that one. The Lordships have seen the words.
There was a lot of discussion also on that.
Yes.
Objective resolution.
Yes, my Lord.
It was proposed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Yeah.
On 13 December 46. 46.
Dr. Ambedkar criticized a lot about that.
Yes.
He said that there are many things which are missing in what we have promised.
My Lord, as a matter of fact, the first letter of Dr. Ambedkar, while introducing the draft constitution, makes a very interesting reading.
So his speech of 4th of December 1948.
Yes. My Lord, when we go through the Constituent Assembly debates of India, my Lord, we really feel as citizens that we were in safest of the hands. Princely states had no option to remain independent under this plan. It comes thereafter in 1947, but Lord Mountbatten advises the Crown of the Chamber of Princes that it's not viable for most of you. You can't survive as independent units. But in this plan, they could join either Pakistan or India, depending upon several factors, but mainly the factor of geographical proximity. For example, hypothetical example, Delhi can't join Pakistan because of the land route not being available, etc. Lord, I may not read the whole. The purpose was that you create one separate department which would deal with integration of states. That was, my Lord, the States Department, and the first secretary was Mr. V.P. Menon. Lord, this function under Sardar Patel. V.P. Menon was the first secretary, and he has written 2 books, my Lord, as your Lordships were told, on a request from Sardar Patel that you document it. You are the first person, yours have the first-hand information, and he has written both the books without being judgmental or without giving his value judgment. He has narrated the facts as he witnessed. Most of the documents are also signed by him. Letters are also signed by him. He had taken part in several negotiations also with princely states. Continued that will not accept divine rights of princely states. We are going for democracy. And, my Lord, they rejected specifically the concept of paramount. The Congress was dealing with this issue and negotiating with the Britishers and with, my Lord, princely states. Lord, this is my submission and my reading. My Lord, an attempt to ensure that unification becomes as difficult as possible because everyone were permitted to put their own terms and conditions. That if you are a princely state, you can accede, but subject to the terms and conditions. And see how beautifully the founding fathers of our constitution, my Lord, dealt with that situation, unified the nation, and the ultimate result was Article 1.
Actually, this was intended to create a sense of confidence in the princely states.
You are not losing everything.
You are acceding to the union, but we are giving you the ability to have reservations in your instrument of accession, by virtue of which you will retain certain subjects to yourself, or you will accept the jurisdiction of the federal legislature, the Dominion legislature, subject to some restrictions which you can yourself impose. So that
you have that option.
We must also put ourselves at that point of time. The Union of India wanted these princely states to come into the fold. But at the same time, we gave them that assurance that you can today decide that you will give only certain subjects to the Dominion legislature.
That can be, my Lord, I think, a better way of reading it. And that's why, my Lord, Sardar Patel says that the basic theme, the underlining theme would be mutual interest and welfare.
Just as an aside, these instruments of accession The draft, was there a model draft?
Yes, that is coming.
And that was prepared by the Department of States, or who prepared that draft?
That is next day.
Alright.
That is next day.
So this letter is taken by Mr. Menon to Sardar Patel, and the Maharaja said that he had instructed his ADC that if Menon comes back, well and good. That means, everything is according to plan. Otherwise, he said, shoot me he told his ADC to shoot him dead when he's asleep, he said. He said, if he comes back, don't wake him up, he said.
Don't wake me up. Otherwise, if he doesn't, then shoot me, because I would not like to be shot by the enemy forces. That was that's how, beautifully sent letter, so long as there is a life in me, I'll defend my people. It was decided that Lord Mountbatten should go alone. VP Menon writes this without any value judgment, without giving his personal views or comments, as a fact as it happened.
Sometimes running high fever is also an act of diplomacy.
Yes, sir, it is, and it was in this case. Yes, it was a diplomatic illness, and it was required in the interest of the country. Absolutely right. That you should not go. They are aggressors, and we shouldn't be appeasing. Note, this was done despite the instrument of accession and despite assurances given by the State Department and Lord Mountbatten during the accession process. There were promises held up, as in one of the judgments referred to, but that judgment is thereafter reconsidered. I'll come to that. That these promises, after the Constitution of India comes into force, have no meaning. It is the Constitution which is supreme, and the only sovereign is we, the people of India. There is a judgment on that. But there is one example, which is very, very striking example. But there were many of this kind. But out of 506 plus princely states, about 200 plus were only in one region of Gujarat, that is Saurashtra region. They formed United States of Kathiawar. There was a separate country which functioned for some time, and thereafter merged. But they signed a treaty of accession. Kindly have a look at the treaty of accession, page 30. The revised treaty of accession, revised instrument of accession. The purpose of my showing is this. Like Jammu and Kashmir, every princely state had put their own conditions. But eventually, the theory of Act of State and Article 363, that all treaties, etc., get subsumed in one document, namely the Constitution of India.